Yeah,
we got Dean ain't got no Pringles today.
No Pringles today. But we'll figure that out.
That sucks.
All right, here we go. Welcome into the Bite Me podcast. Appreciate you guys joining us. As always, I am John Lopez. That is Captain Dean Thomas, and that is Captain Scott. Oh, Captain Caleb. He's a little under the weather. I think it's coming out of both ends. It's maybe a little too graphic, but that's what we do here on the Bite Me podcast. So, hey, it happens. It's happened to all of us. Don't act like it hasn't.
On a boat.
On the boat. Well, now that has not happened. But that's interesting because that might end up being a boat ramp confessional, which we actually have today. I think we have today. Depends on how much of the gritty details Captain Dean wants to share. But we've got the podcast here on Podbean is where we host it. Don't forget to subscribe there. But it's also hosted on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. And we've got a little bit of a programming note here. Next week, since it's Christmas Eve, I believe, is normally when we record. I'm not going to put these guys through that. I'm not going to put myself through that. We're going to answer some long-standing questions, fill in some gaping holes for a number of our listeners. We have listeners all over the country. A bunch of new listeners come in every week. And so we're going to fill in some holes with some of our best segments that we've done, including I'm editing it right now. So we're going to go to the origin of the famous otter story. There are still otter references. There are still otter references on our Bite Me group page that some people may not know what that's all about. And I think that was actually in 2022. I went back. I did a lot of digging, going through old episodes and listening to old episodes. Man, it was way too much time spent on that. But I found, I think it was in February of 2022. That was even before, right before Captain Dean joined us on a regular basis. We're going to have Captain Dean with a rant as only he can do on pot liquors. That's going to be in next week's episode. We're going to have Captain Scott talking tarpon, even though it's not tarpon season. That's a very popular topic that people want to know. And this is the one, Scott, where you went into like everything from gear and approach and what to look for and all that. So there's going to be that. And we're going to have a nice meaty cameo from Scott, Dean, and Patrick Gardner on getting that elusive trout. It is big trout season, so to speak, and we're going to have that. So I'm really looking forward to that episode. Spending a lot of time editing it, but that's neither here nor there. Nobody cares about that, but it's going to be really, really good. And then I'm really looking forward to, we all know each other here very well. A lot of our listeners know us very well. A lot of our listeners, know us from what we do here on the podcast every week. We're going to have sit downs, man. Barbara Walters style sit downs. Caleb almost started crying. I'm just saying when I did mine with his yesterday. I'm just saying. So it's going to be like the way I'm framing it. The way you think I'm kidding? Is that
why he's really out today?
Yeah, he's just too emotionally distraught. You think I'm kidding? But basically, the way I'm framing it is how these three captains became who and what they are. And we went back to grandparents and everything else and with Caleb. So we're going to do that with Captain Scott and Captain Dean as well. So that is going to be the New Year's Eve episode. So really looking forward to the next 2 weeks. But today, great episode on tap. Great topics. Love you guys listening. Love you guys commenting. I'm gonna let you guys weigh in on the what I just set up. Dean, you look like you got something to say.
So, do we have my latest rescue mission on the rundown today?
That's the Boat Ramp Confessional. We have that on the rundown.
Okay.
When we're watching a Boat Ramp Confessional unfold right before your eyes. But let's start right here. Let's talk winos and crackheads. Let's talk winos and crackheads because the way I mean, who doesn't like talking winos and crackheads? First of all, I like winos. That's a good old school word, and I like crackheads because I like the way Dean says crackheads. Dean, say crackheads real quick.
Crackheads, crackheads. We got. I live in the coastal community, the edge of civilization. So the crackheads who roam the earth, when they get to the edge of the water, they can't go any farther. Or they get to the edge of the land, and they can't go any farther. So they tend to congregate along the shorelines. And yes, we got.
But okay, so the way I framed this topic, because a couple things immediately popped into my mind as well. But I'm gonna start with Scott. Oh, the things you see before dawn at the convenience store. We've all done it. We do it on a regular basis. Some of us on a daily basis. Some of us on a weekly basis. You go, oh, I got to go pick up some ice or whatever. I'm going to pick up some tacos or something like that. So you get to the convenience store. And I know you didn't even tell me, Scott, but I bet this is when it was. You get to the convenience store. I'm guessing you had to pick up some ice or something. And you ran into who? Who'd you run into? A wino?
Oh God. Yeah. The Andy Evans, I got to give him credit, man. He had me laughing, had me absolutely rolling on this one. But he was talking. We answered his question last week about water temperature, or answered one of the guys' questions, and they had a follow up. And this Andy Evans fella come in, and he said, "I put their knowledge in this order. Captain Scott Knoll says it's chiseled in rock somewhere, like the Ten Commandments, and it's pretty reliable. Captain Caleb is right there with sportscasters on Sunday telling you who's going to win the game, like John Lopez, and even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then." Dean is kind of like those winos you see at the gas station at 5 a.m. when you're buying tacos, and sometimes they're talking to themselves, and sometimes they're giving a philosophy lesson.
Yeah.
I read that out loud. My mom and dad were here, and my mom was just about to roll off the couch laughing about Dean as a wino.
The thing about it is, though,
I can't disagree with any of that.
No, he is a part philosopher, part wino on a rant. So I immediately thought of an old story. This is probably 25 years ago. So there was, I stopped at this is when I was dragging my boat everywhere, and I forget if it was Trinity. It was probably Trinity or East Matagorda Bay, because that's where I really fished a lot back in the day. And I'm not proud of it, but it's hilarious. So when it stopped on the road, had to go to the bathroom, picked up some ice for my boat. It's probably 4:35, in the morning. Go into this convenience store on the way. I think it was Sargent, but anyway, bathroom was broken. I was like, well, crap. So I get my coffee, get my ice, and I go behind the bathroom. I go behind the building and take care of business. And it's still dark. I can't believe I'm telling this story. And as I'm taking care of my business, I hear, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I thought I was in trouble. No, it was a woman lying down in front of me. Like,
Damn.
I was peeing on her.
Damn. And there's your crackhead.
And there's your crackhead. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, man." She didn't know where she was. She was so messed up. She was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Well,
It's raining.
I'm peeing on you is what I'm doing." I've never told that story ever in my life, but that's what you get. That's what you get at before dawn at the convenience stores. And so that's one to leave our listeners with, but it happens. It happens. Dean, you stop at a few places every morning.
Oh, shit. Dude, when I was living next door to the Stripe store over here in Aransas Pass, as soon as the sun went down, that's like cockroaches, drawn to the dark. As soon as the sun goes down, the cockroaches would start crawling towards the Stripe store. And they all knew me, man. I didn't take no shit. They took one step in my yard. I was out there with a baseball bat telling them, "Move along, son." Had a lot of confrontations. Shoot, the store next to me, the building was abandoned for many years, and there was a little wood fence around the back, and man, it was Camp Crack for a long time. But that's kind of like the old history of Aransas Pass. It has really changed. Times have changed dramatically. We just don't have the variety of crackhead that we used to have around here anymore.
You miss the crackheads?
Yeah, it's hard to score a rock nowadays. Used to be easy.
That's a quote. "It's hard to score a rock nowadays." Scott Perry was talking about on the live feed here. You probably dealt with hundreds as a cop, but more specifically, early in the morning, man, you see some stuff. You see some stuff at those places.
Oh man, I worked 11 at night till 7 in the morning for what, 9 years, and the only thing open is convenience stores. So I had 2 good ones in my beat and 2 that were sketchy as hell. So we went to the good ones.
So at Con Brown Harbor, the main city boat ramp 20 years ago, before when all the shrimpers and everything else used to hang around there, and I didn't have my boat at the marina, I was still using the boat ramp, and we'd be over there in the morning, and that was the most embarrassing place to bring people from out of town to launch a trip. I mean, and the best one that I ever saw there was the naked crackhead girls walking up and down the bulkhead and then swimming, jumping off the bulkhead, butt ass naked amongst the oysters and the mud. And so man, Con Brown Harbor used to be a methed up place.
Buck naked. You're talking not
shit. Butt ass naked, dancing, prancing, whacked out on the good shit. And
the bad stuff. The bad stuff.
And then just jumping in the water and swimming and then back on the bulkhead. But I mean, that Con Brown Harbor was a horrible place 20 years ago. It's first class now. I mean, and the police have done an amazing job in this town. Much credit to those guys on the effort to clean this little Crackville up.
Over here, we got Speedy Stop. It's nice. But the things you see there in the morning sometimes just crack you up. It was winter time a little while back. Nobody out. I'm taking one of my trips. And I get there, and this old lab, you'll love this. This old lab, Port O'Connor is known for everybody just lets their dogs out. And they just wander around town. And if you get on the local Facebook thing, it's constant, everybody complaining about it. But this old lab is just sitting up there by the ice machine. He just sitting, watching, watching everybody pull up. And this other old lab comes wandering across the parking lot, joins up with him. They nose. He sits down next to him. They're staring out the parking lot while I'm getting gas. This other one wanders up there. He noses both of them like, good morning. He sits down next to them, and they're all staring out. Before long, there's like 6 of them. And
all labs
sitting in a line. It's all labs and mutt labs.
Yeah.
And they're all just sitting there, and they're staring out at the parking lot. It's before daylight. And then this last one comes wandering up, and they all kind of stand up, sniff him, and then they all just take off as a group.
They had some place
into the neighborhood. It was like that was their meetup spot, man. That's where the morning coffee was at.
That's like us sitting at the boat ramp watching people launch.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing about before dawn at the convenience store. You also see the 2-legged animals, us, with everybody's so excited to go fishing, and they do stupid stuff. They'll leave the I've seen over the years. I've seen the gas nozzle stayed in the boat. I've seen, guys that are, put stuff on the back of the boat and it tumbles out, like a case of water or whatever.
I saw a dude put the gas nozzle in the rod holder instead of the
I've seen
instead of the gas cap, and he ran about $17 before he realized this shit was running under the console and out the back of the boat.
Another one I had at Speedy Stop aboard. This old boy comes driving up there in a riding lawnmower, pulling a trailer. Old dude. He comes pulling up, and the trailer has one of the plastic lawn chairs, the little white plastic lawn chairs, screwed down to the trailer. It's one of the bitty trailers, and it's screwed down to the trailer, and there's a dude sitting on the plastic chair in the back. And they pull up there. The guy gets off the little plastic chair, goes inside, buys a suitcase of beer, comes back out while the other guy's filling the lawnmower up. He sets the beer down on the little trailer, pulls a couple out, hands it one to his buddy. He's got the other one, and off they go into the neighborhood.
They had work to do that day.
Gotta get to work, huh?
I don't understand the chair
most
part.
Port O'Connor thing I ever saw. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, what was going on with the chair nailed down on the trailer? I don't get that.
It was for the second guy.
Was the only way place he could sit
That's how he gets around.
on the
That's how he
tractor,
got
I
around.
guess. Yeah, I guess.
And it was a little riding lawnmower, and it had a little hitch on it. Had a little bitty trailer back there, and then they were right next to me, so I saw it was screwed down. It was permanent to the trailer.
Hey, look, man, when you're having that much fun riding around town on your lawnmower, you want to bring your buddy with you.
You definitely want to bring your buddy with you.
It's like,
I'm
come
telling
on.
you, man. It's. I feel like this could be a post on the group page. Maybe somebody will post it. The things you've seen before dawn at the convenience store, and I'm quite certain my long held secret of peeing on a woman behind a convenience store is going to be told at some point. But hey, what are you doing?
Hey,
sorry,
man. Hey, some places you got to pay extra for that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, that's right. That's some people, that's a fetish. But keep in mind also, this is 25 years ago. My jet stream was a lot stronger, so it was happening, man. It was definitely.
I've never heard you give that confession on 610.
No, that one is not going to happen on 610.
I don't know. I think you might find out about it somehow.
And you stay away from the text board and your texting for sure. But, all right, so other topics we're going to definitely get into. Some flounder limit stuff that was on the group page. Some water temp questions that we've had. I'm going to save the one about what can the only thing that can ruin a fishing trip this time of year, because Caleb had some thoughts on that, and he'll be back when we come back live. But let's go to the Boat Ramp Confessional. Dean, I'm going to just kind of toss it to you because you saw an all-time Boat Ramp Confessional just kind of unfold before your very eyes.
Yeah, I seen it. And then I said recently that I was never going to pick any. If I saw another person out there swimming around in the bay, I was going to pull up to them. I was going to toss them a life jacket and call somebody. But this one was quite interesting. And I don't know. Okay, so here's how it all started, and then we'll cover the second part of that. It was last week, one weekday. I just went out. My boat needed some exercise. I left about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, was out there fishing. It was amazing, low tide. Boom, catching one red after another. And I was fixing to go in. I was fixing to wrap it up. And I was sitting there, and I said, man, I'm just going to troll down this shoreline a little bit, see if there's another school of reds, just out of curiosity. So I ended up, as a second thought, staying for another 15 or 20 minutes. If I would have left when I was originally going to leave, I would have missed the whole thing. And then for the dude that I picked up, he would have been in a bad situation because there was nobody else out there behind us. Mm-hmm. It was just me and him. And so I'm sitting there, and as this little solo skiff, or a solo skiff style boat, it was one of the boats. Mm-hmm. I'll drop a couple clues out there. I have to decide if I'm going to give the name or not.
Was he thrashing in the water?
No, he was standing up, but
he wasn't thrashing.
He was threshing.
Okay. Go ahead.
So this little boat comes cruising off the flats. And at this point, I had turned on the key. I was idling away from the shoreline, and I just happened to be looking out. Heard the boat crank up. I'm watching this boat run across the water. And all of a sudden, man, he spins around dramatically. Boom. And I thought, whoa, that dude saw some fish. I'm like, he's pulling up on one of these schools. And as soon as that thought went through my head, as I looked over there, he goes flying through the air. The boat flips upside down. Ooh. The little motor was in the water, and you could hear it, wow, 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 bah, and quit running because I'm sucked up water in the carburetor at that point. Mm-hmm. And dude is swimming around. The debris trail is floating away from his boat. And I looked, and but it was in this one spot. It was crazy. I was over a sandbar where he could stand up. It was about chest deep. If it would have been 100 feet in any other direction, it would have been water over his head. He's in waders. That day, the water temperature was like 56 degrees. Oh. It was cold. And so I was like, man, that dude might need some help, is what I was thinking.
I think so. So what gave it away?
I motored over there to him, and whenever I got to where I could see who it was, I recognized it. Dude is He's a YouTube sensation. I mean, he's got hundreds of thousands of followers, does fishing videos, you know, a pretty popular dude in my neighborhood. And when I pull up on him and he's like kind of distraught, gathering his gear, he's like, oh man, this sucks. And then he looks around and then he saw that it was me. And I swear the first words out of his mouth, please don't put this on the podcast.
Well, that's an invitation.
And I was like, of course not. We would never do that.
Never.
But as so we gather up his stuff, and man, that thing with that boat was, man, it was hard to flip over. We had to put a rope like around it and pull it. You couldn't just grab it and flip it. I mean, it wasn't that easy. He was actually trying to flip it by himself, and it just wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, his camera, DSLR,
Mm-hmm.
DLSR, badass camera, underwater, soaking away. He opened up the little door, water pours out of it. Video camera underwater, drone underwater, everything. But it was floating. We gathered it up, but for whatever good that does, I don't know. And then coolers floating away, we get it flipped over, man. We gather everything up, and the moral of the story, I mean, I guess in the end of it is, no matter how much experience you have out there, no matter what you think you know, shit can happen. And what happened, what caused him to flip where it went wrong, is with the tiller handle on the little motor, it's got a little U-joint on it where it pivots around. So as he was running, that little U-joint failed. The motor kicked to the side completely under power, spun the boat in a circle, tossed him and everything off. Boat goes upside down.
Dang. I mean, obviously it's funny now, but in the moment, you know, you're panicking. But
it's probably still not funny to him.
Well, especially after he hears this.
It sounds like he might not have had his kill switch on either, huh?
Maybe not.
Well, the motor. Well, yeah, the motor, when it was inverted, was still running. I mean, it went wop, pop, 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 and then it made this bubbling noise. Blue.
Damn good reason to have that kill switch on, though.
But yeah, and all that being said, he could have hit his head. He could have hit, the boat could have flipped on him. It could have been way worse than the actual, just the disgrace of getting hauled in like that.
Yeah, I mean, I run a tiller all the time, and I never run that tiller. Running with a steering wheel doesn't bother me. Yeah, I mean, things can happen in any boat, but the tiller, there's just something about running a tiller boat, especially with an extension on it the way I do. I'm religious about having that kill switch on there. I mean, it's a law, but it's also something that, you know, just, it's good, damn good idea.
It's the law, and it's the reason why every once in a while, and you know, I test it. You know, I'll pull it, and just the last time I did it, probably 6 or 8 months ago, I was you know, puttering around, and I pulled it, my wrist back, and the thing popped, but it just popped off the switch. You know, it didn't kill the motor. So yeah, I mean, lessons learned, but
his dad is actually an avid follower of the podcast, so his dad's going to hear this story for sure. And I bet you money he tuned in today just to see how it all worked out.
Well, but now you know.
Let's see if anybody can figure it out from the little clues we dropped.
Yeah. Now, is there an update? Have you talked to him regarding his equipment and everything? I mean,
what's that? You broke up on me a minute.
I said, is there an update regarding his equipment or anything?
Oh no, I have not got a follow up on that. But I mean, he probably lost $5 or $6 grand. Oh. Shit, maybe more than that. You know, just the cameras and those things add up fast. So, but he did have a little stringer of fish. At least he had dinner when it was over.
So there's that.
So,
I think he would have traded that. No,
it's something to eat.
yeah, but we're definitely not going to mention his name, are we? No, we're not. No, we're not.
We'll let it ride at that.
Yeah, but yeah. So at least he wasn't thrashing around in the water. He just had it all in total control there. So let's go. One thing you mentioned, Dean, was the water levels were low, and they've been low, and they've gone up. Scott, I'm actually going to start with you on this one though, Scott, because we actually I had a Facebook direct message. It's funny how this works out. We had this on the sheet already, and I got a message about the water levels from Chris, one of our listeners, Chris Lang. I mean, so the way I put it is, okay, now what, Scott? Now, not only, and forget the boating safety part. I mean, well, don't forget it, but I mean, set that aside. Now what happens with these water levels? Because I haven't looked today, but I haven't seen them really coming back up at all, nor should they.
Well, we're going to get the wintertime lows now, so it's going to pretty consistently stay low, except the in between fronts. We'll have that strong southeast. It might push some water in, get a little high.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're not going to have those high spring and fall tides for a while. Most of what it does, it just concentrates your fish so much better.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a little warm spell like this, hell, it's 80-something degrees out there today.
Yeah.
The fish are going to stay up shallow. They're still going to go as shallow as they can get on redfish, and you just kind of got to play it by ears to how shallow it is today, and find your spots. Find your, work along the edges of some deeper water. If you got a front coming, they might slide over and get a little bit closer to that deeper water if it sounds like it's going to be a stronger front. You're still going to have some more, little fallouts. Going to have a strong northeast or a northwest wind coming next couple of days. That'll probably drain some water back out again if it does come back up some. And you'll get those little mini dumps. Not anything. That one we had the other day, that was our major dump for the year. But talked to Andrew this week. They were down here for 3 or 4 days. They found a whole bunch of fish right after that dump, and they weren't eating. And the first day or so after the dump, and then they stuck around till Sunday, I think it was, and the fish started eating on for them again. A little bit, just kind of scattered. It was, according to him, it was a little slow on that, but they found them up shallow. There's really no reason for them to drop off any deeper right now. Our water temperature is just not going to fall off till we get a real good cold front. But they didn't note that they saw a whole lot of little shrimp, which is what I've been seeing as well. Lots of small shrimp that got sucked out of that high water. I don't know if we had a late hatch, like a secondary hatch or something, but there's a whole bunch of baby shrimp, and they're getting big enough that the reds are paying attention to them. They're not going to grow out. It could be grass shrimp. I haven't really looked that close, but that's what they're going to be feeding on until it gets really good and cold. So they're going to stay up shallow.
Dean, what's going on with the tide? Because when it goes out down in our neck of the woods, I mean, you got to know where you're going, first of all. But if you can find the right spots, you might be onto something.
Yes. Last week, the tide was low. Yesterday, I mean, we had a good low tide because it just went screaming out all day long, crazy pouring out tide. But at the crack of dawn, we had a lot of water on the flats. It was 1.5. 1.5 at the Port Aransas jetties, which when it's 1.7, 1.8, you can run all of the shallowest flats. I mean, you can run South Bay, BNR, you can run back in the corner of over East Flats. I mean, all of those you could get back up in there. Today, the tide ripped out and it bottomed at about 0.5, which, and it started turning back in at the end of the day. So like we fished until about 1:30 today, and at 1 o'clock, it was noticeably coming back in. So, we've had this discussion, it just doesn't work that way around here. It doesn't blow the water out. The only thing that blows when the wind blows is a west wind. Rarely do we have a west wind. Up north, the northern part of the coast has a serious influence on that part of the world. But I started out fishing the drop-offs, the edges, hundreds of little trout, tons of little trout. I mean, 10-inch trout. We could have sat there and caught them every single cast. I mean, they were just thick. Gave up on that, went to the flats. And it was a slow day for me. I mean, it wasn't quick and easy. But at the end of the day, when the tide was out and started coming back in, fishing in about a foot, 18 inches of water, drifting on the grass is where the big fish came from.
Now, listen, Scott, it's almost
here's an interesting aspect of that last week to this week. So the lowest water temperature that I recorded last week after the cold front was 56 degrees.
Okay.
Does anybody want to guess what the water temperature was today?
Ooh. I'm going to say 60.
I took a picture of my my little machine today, and it was 73 degrees.
What?
73 degree water temperature on the flats today.
Man, that's a huge leap.
So get with that. From 56 to 73 in about 7 days. But it's 82, 83 degrees in the afternoon, very light winds, a little bit lower than normal tide. It doesn't take much to warm that up. Plus, the cold spell wasn't cold long enough to chill the mud. It didn't chill the earth down deep where it keeps, once we get into January, when it stays cold, then the earth becomes cold. Then the water that flows over that mud is cooled. So the mud's still warm. It didn't take long to warm up the water. Yep, 73 degree water temperature today. And the flats covered with bait, little tiny minnows, mullet. It felt like a good old October, September kind of day out there today.
Man, that's nuts. And Scott, it's as if you got this text from our listener, Chris, because this is what he wanted to add. And he sent it this morning. And like I said, we already had the topic on here, but I want to toss this out to you because you already addressed some of this. He said, this is what we saw. Tons of dime-sized shrimp in any water that was deep enough to have gone dry earlier. Tons of shallow reds that were spooky and tight-lipped as he's ever seen. They got more aggressive by Sunday. So that's exactly what you were talking about. So, but what I wanted to kind of hone in on is the shrimp. You touched on it, but that's a lot of little shrimp. And with the water temps, with what Dean said, kind of going back up, we're not going to have severe water drops. Those shrimp are going to grow pretty quick. I mean, does that kind of change the analytics here a little bit?
Well, we have a lot of different kinds of shrimp in Texas. I mean, we've got the white and the brown that everybody knows, but there's also a bunch of little various grass shrimp that don't actually get all that big. And that's probably what we're seeing right now. Hadn't really caught any, take a real close look, but they really don't get that big. And that's probably what's going on right now. I believe that Chris that you're talking about, he's one of Andrew's buddies, and they were together, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains that. Yeah. Well, I like Chris.
Yeah.
I'll take his word for
it. Yeah. Me and Andrew, we went back and forth a good bit this past week. They bought a new little poling skiff, and they were going out and doing a little work. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it is the same fellow that Chris.
Yeah.
Little side note, little non-boat ramp confessional, a poling skiff confessional. They were learning how to pole, and Chris took a little tumble.
Oh man!
And fell off the poling platform.
Well, that's how you learn. That's how you learn. He probably wasn't barefoot.
Man.
Yeah. But I guarantee you still outfish Andrew. I mean, that's a given. I mean, probably 10-1, something along those lines, right? So, never even met Andrew, but he can't fish a lick. All right. So let's clear up some confusion here from the group page on Facebook. You can join that anytime you want. And it's about flounder. Scott, this is, you were answering them, but let's talk to the whole class here. Like the whole story, I don't have it in front of me, but the gist of it was, hey, we get these flounder that we're catching, and go back and get others. And if you have them in your if you have, what is it, 5 in possession, something like that, because we're back into the time of the year where you can keep flounder. Does that include no, it's limit in possession, right? Limit in possession. And they're saying, but what if you go back and forth, that whole story?
And everybody always tries to pull all that,
the loopholes.
I caught some before midnight and I caught some after midnight, and so I can have 2 limits and all. It don't work that way, boys.
Nope.
That's not how it works. And the whole thread that was going on was everybody trying to figure out loopholes and gaps and how to get around it. And one of them said, put them in an ice chest and tape it up if you're camping.
That doesn't matter at all.
Write the date on it and all this. It's just like, and it don't work. The possession limit on flounder is 1 daily limit. On most other fish, it's 2. Like on speckled trout, you're allowed 2 days worth of limits in possession. So if you go camping over on the island, you can have your 3 fish from one day and 3 fish from another day. Flounder, no, it's 1. Possession limit, I went ahead and pulled it up so I could have it. Maximum number of fish a person may possess before returning to their residence. Possession limit is twice the daily bag on game and non-game fish, except as provided in this guide, and does not apply to fish in the possession of or stored by a person at their residence.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't include your hotel room and all that other stuff. Residence, a permanent structure where a person regularly sleeps and keeps personal belongings such as furniture and clothes, but does not include a temporary abode or dwelling such as a hunting or fishing club or any clubhouse, cabin, tent, or trailer house or mobile home used as a hunting or fishing camp, or any hotel, motel, rooming house used on a temporary basis. So until you take it back to your house and you put it in your freezer, it's in your possession.
Yeah.
Is basically what they're getting down to. How strict they are on that, it's going to be up to each individual game warden. They've got some leeway. They can, they got their discretion about it. Just don't try to get away with it. Don't. There's so many people say, "Oh man, just take it back to your hotel room, put it in your hotel room, and then you're not in possession anymore, and go back out and do it again." By law, no, you can't do that. Is the game warden going to come check your hotel room? Probably not.
No.
Somebody needs to explain that to the winter Texans that we got down here, man, because they come down with a little chest freezer plugged in their RV in their motorhome, and they just stack them up. And man, you can tell it's winter Texan season down here too, man. There's a bunch of doolies running around with Minnesota license plates going 2 miles an hour because they got nowhere to be and blocking up the road. Oh, it was funny. I was even at HEB, and I was, where they give out the free samples, where they do it. I saw a bunch of them all lined up. I think they were going through the line twice.
Getting some salsa and chips.
Yeah, it's like they were having lunch up there or something.
Getting that good salsa. Austin is talking about flounders are a myth. That's the other part of this. I mean, first of all, you got to catch more than 5. You got to catch more than 5 flounder, which I know you can do at certain times of the year, but that's good.
While we're doing this, Adam Weller, he's a regular listener. He just sent me a picture. He says from POC, and it's a guy doing a riding lawnmower with a trailer on the back of it with a lab riding on the back of the trailer.
Okay. Some different kind of people down there in Port O'Connor, man. You've got to be careful with those
room
folks.
For your doggy.
You got to be careful with those folks. That's for sure. We're not. Look, none of us, neither Caleb, consider ourselves flounder people. But Dean, I'll start with you on this. We all have a couple of spots where we've caught flounder and we go back to. If you're going to try to target them, now's the time to do it. I mean, now's the time to try to figure it out. All right.
Well, especially here in Redfish Bay, most of the year we're up on the grass beds, we're up on the flats, and the flounder just don't live there. I'm sure there's somebody that's going to disagree with me. I can't say they don't live there, because on rare occasions, yes. And the flounder guys go at night, and they do go in the shallows. They go around the edge of the mangroves and they stab them, which is another practice that I don't understand how that is still legal. But if it was a species that was not in peril, good, go ahead on, have a good time. You know, we have closed seasons because of the pressure that the resource is under, yet they're still allowed to be shine a light in their eyes and stab them. Kind of crazy to me. But the this time of year, because the tide drops out, we're fishing the edges, we're fishing little canals, we're fishing in little cuts. You will mix in flounder this time of year because you're fishing where they live. You know, you're fishing where you expect them to be. They hang on drop-offs. They love the drains. They love the little canals. And so do kind of by default, because we're spending more time in those areas, we tend to catch more flounder. And we're fishing with subsurface lures. You know, you're bumping the bottom with a soft plastic, and that's flounder fishing 101. I mean, that's all year long. If you fish those areas in the summer with that type of method, you're going to find an occasional flounder. But up north, Port O'Connor, Matagorda, Freeport, Galveston, it's a flounder factory up there. I mean, you can target flounder. You can specifically go for flounder and be productive doing that. It's just not one of those things that South Texas is just not known for those. Another thing with flounder, they're a cold water species. They thrive all the way up the East Coast. They do very well in very cold water. We're at the southern end of their range. And then there's theories, you know, because you're at the end of their range, there's times when a species thrives, their range expands. There's times whenever a species is under threat, their range becomes much shorter. The numbers, the thing about flounder and the recordings, because it's a commercially fished species, those numbers are recorded. So those guys that are commercial fishing are reporting their catch every day. So those numbers are monitored. That is how a closed season came into an existence, because those numbers were dropping and dropping. The sizes of flounder getting smaller and smaller, and the numbers are getting smaller. And it became to, I mean, the fact that there is actually a closed season on flounder, there is a time whenever nobody can catch one. I mean, and that's the only species in Texas that has a closed season. And if that doesn't tell you what the situation is on flounder, I don't know what you need to know.
I'll be interested, Scott, how this plays out over the next few years. And I kid around a lot by saying it's very rare that I catch a flounder on purpose. But this is the time of year when I've done it. And generally it comes to what Dean was just talking about. And I want to get your thoughts on if somebody had to, you know, ask you to try to catch a flounder, what you would do. Generally, it is those kind of drains as the water's out. Popping. I'm just loyal to just the only time I really use a gulp. Purple gulp with a chartreuse tail, bouncing it real slow, getting that different bite. Yes, sir. It kills it. Yes, it does. Dean is questioning me. Purple with a chartreuse tail gulp or white with a chartreuse tail gulp.
Shame on you.
It's the only time. If I find flounder, I always keep a few gulp in my boat, and that's when I go to them. But Scott,
I'm gonna go to your boat and throw them in the trash.
You got the key. You could do that. Scott, you've seen me. I pulled some out the other day. I never throw gulp, but if I catch a flounder, there's usually more.
Now we've learned a lot about John today. We've learned a little bit. We've delved into John's personal life today.
Well, we're not doing the Barbara Walters thing with me, just you three guys. Mine would be probably 5 hours.
Still, he'll pee on you.
So Scott, somebody says I want to go catch a flounder.
I'd start at Matagorda and go up. If I had to go catch a flounder, it'd be around Galveston marshes, and there's still some that are going to hang back. The bigger females, they wait and start heading out. Not a whole lot of them going to be still in the marsh right now. Most of them have headed out. If I had to do it right this minute, I'd go get between Seawolf Park and the Texas A&M campus and fish that shoreline of the Galveston Channel. Any piece of little structure, any kind of a drop off, any edge, that's good. The rest of the year, it's going to be around small drains in the marsh. Anywhere where a back lake drains into a bigger lake, and that little flat spot, the little delta that forms on the outside of it, just start banging around that, hit the edges where the current's moving the best. Flounder are just going to, it's the way they're built, man. They're going to sit there and wait for something to come to them. They're not going hunting. Whatever they eat comes to them. So you got to think along the lines of which way's the bait moving, without going tight at a drain. It's probably the number one.
I'll tell you 2 flounder honey holes, and I'll give them up because I'm never going to fish there again. So
I bet you I can guess one. Let me guess one first, because this is what I was going to say. Don't sleep on the edges of the intercoastal.
No, it's not in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's going to be, you go to Chocolate Bay, and you go to where Hall's Bayou empties into Chocolate Bay. It's up on the north shoreline, and Hall's Bayou winds way up there. It even goes up to the highway. It goes a long way. The mouth of Hall's Bayou, right in front of that, right where it opens up, man, it's just one of those amazing little flounder holes that has everything, all the ingredients you look for. Water's running out of the bayou. It's got a nice little flat. It's actually a pretty big flat right out in front. We used to sit over there back in the day and just load up on flounder. And the other spot was at the around the Brazos River, where the Brazos River comes out at Freeport. That place was just loaded with flounder. But the problem over there was it was in the shadow of the DuPont chemical plant. Some of them had 3 eyes and 2 tails and kind of these weird lesions on them. So
Russell Bradley's going to be really, really mad at you about that Hall's Bayou comment.
I ain't got
a lot of people know about that.
I ain't got no love for Russell. He's been up in my ass for many years.
Oh, he likes to stick those flounder with that pointy stick too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he can go out.
But yeah, so and all of that stuff, Chocolate Bay, that Hall's Bayou, you can find that scenario in a lot of places. Just like what Scott was saying. You go into the back bays, those areas, you find where a creek is running out, and yeah, I mean that's flounder country.
Yeah.
When Dean was talking, he said points north of him. He started with Port O'Connor. Well, we don't have a whole lot of flounder here that are regularly caught. We got so many damn flounder boats. I mean, you go out there and sit on my buddy's porch at night on the intercoastal, and you can look out across the bay and see 4, 5, 6 of them at any one point. Now, there's a lot of flounder boats around. I mean, I know that means we got flounder, but we don't. Anywhere you got clear water, you're going to have a lot of flounder boats, and the flounder boats are going to take their toll on them, and it makes it a lot harder to catch them.
And that was another thing about Matagorda. I mean, I lived in Matagorda for 15 years and fished every one of those creeks. You go up the intercoastal go south down the intercoastal, and there's just numerous creeks. I think Crab Lake is one that's over there. Crab Lake is actually a real defined one that goes way back in there. But there are just tons of little inlets along the intercoastal. And I mean, all of those, it was redfish and flounder. I mean, they were all great for both of those. But yeah, those are I don't know. I guess it's kind of like a little intersection or a place that just congregates bait fish, a little funnel, a little drain is where you look for those things.
And you just described exactly what I was saying. Don't sleep on those the edges of the intercoastal. That's what I was talking about. The most flounder I've ever caught, not that I've caught a bunch because I'm not good at it, has been in Matagorda, in that area for sure. All right, so here is where I want to sort of an annual thing. Well, it is an annual thing that we do. We're on the air for a number of reasons. We love doing this. but there are a lot of people that have become, that help Dean and Scott and Caleb, be able to continue to do this. And Scott, you and I have done this in the past. I don't remember if we did this with Dean last year or not, but I want to talk about the people who make your lives as captains and our lives on the Bite Me podcast better. We got Christmas next week. It's a good time to give some serious, thank yous to people that put this thing together and keep us giving this information to thousands of listeners. And I'm going to start, and then I'm going to go to you guys. Obviously there are people that love what we do and they want to be a part of it and have been a part of it from the very, very beginning. Jake Koshy at the Boatyard. I want to say we were 6 months in at the most. He said, "That's awesome. I want in." The Boatyard has been unbelievable. I've purchased, I believe, 2 boats there. They have great information. Jake Koshy, you hear him on the YouTube channel, this YouTube channel. You hear him on this podcast with information. The Boatyard, absolutely fantastic. Same thing with free Fishing Tackle Unlimited. Emily and Joe, I love chatting with them. Last time I saw Joe, he was very proud of, what he's done with the podcast. So was Emily. And of course, Freedom Boats, which, by the way, I think I'm getting another one. I think I'm getting a new one come February after he gets into his new shop. Yeah, Chet's got a new shop in Victoria that he's going to be able to, triple. They're still going to be handmade, but he's going to be able to triple what he's doing right now. It's a great place. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Scott, but it's a nice place. And then, of course, Anglers Anonymous. Wade Wright has been in it from the first year. Wade Wright has been here. Tim and Jason. Sawgrass Rods has hopped on, and I'll let you talk about Collins a little more. Our friend with incredible knowledge, one of the best fishermen of any of our lifetimes, Mark Nichols at DOA. Gulf Coast Marine Shield. Talk about a listener that said he was, I say just, but he was a listener. John Gray over at Gulf Coast. He says, "Man, this is awesome. I love listening. Never miss it. I want to be a part of it." And he's got that Marine Shield for your boats, which is badass. And when I get the new boat, I'm gonna get that shield on there, and it keeps everything from first of all, keeps it easier to clean, but keeps it running smooth. Everything from sticking on the bottom of your your boat, etc. But I feel compelled. We got to give the shout outs to our people. Scott, I know you've got a lot of people that keep you on the water.
Yeah, Fishing Tackle Unlimited, number one. I've been mill work there for a long time. I've been friends with Joe. I first met Joe when I was like 16 years old, and working at Marburgers, and done a lot with Joe over the years. Built stores for him, built out some of those stores. They've just been really good to me. They've done a lot to keep me on the water over the years when I was a starting off guide, and they helped me out a lot. Of course, Collins with Sawgrass. He's up and coming, hell of a rod company, and he's doing some pretty cool stuff. And he's working on a whole set of tarpon rods specifically for me. We worked on them this summer, some prototypes, and we think we got it worked out, and they're going to start building those for me. Shimano, Hughes with Shimano, always been a good friend for a long time and has taken good care of me over the years, keeping me in reels. You mentioned Mark Nichols. That's one of the cool things about this business is you end up being friends with everybody.
Absolutely.
On top of it. And I've been to Mark's house down there in Florida and stayed there. Just great guy. So much fun to sit and talk to, listen to him tell stories about those big trout. My guys over at Sightcast Flies, they're sending me a care package right now of a bunch of flies for wintertime. They do hand-tied flies, and they've got one of mine, that Convict Killer, and they sell it in all the stores. Great guys. My newest one is Explore Boatworks out of South Carolina. Frankie moved on. He's been great to work with. We're going to do a little something on my new boat. With you
next
and
week.
Then, Angler U is going to do some stuff with it too. One of them I don't talk about much is Russell Lure. When I'm throwing those big poppers for those jacks and bull reds in the summertime, Mike keeps me in poppers. I'll run into a bunch of black tip sharks and they eat me up for a day. All I had to do is call Mike. A couple of days later, I got a whole new box of poppers. AFCO clothing. They do fantastic for me and Dean both. They take good care of us. That's pretty much the only clothing I wear. A few things that they don't make, Sims makes, and Sims waders. Not that I use waders a whole lot, but I do have my Sims waders for when it comes that moment when I need them. Those are my main ones. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. As I was talking to Camille right before this, and I was like, man, I don't want to leave anybody out. But those are people that I deal with on the regular.
And I want to say, just for our listeners' perspective, you can trust my guys, Dean and Scott and Caleb. I feel like you could trust me because I am not a professional, but we say the same thing about all these things. Just a little story here. I bet in the last 6 months, as this podcast has really taken off, I've had at least close to 10, probably 7 or 8 at least. People send me some things and say, "Hey, can you try this? We want to talk about being with you on the podcast." And we kindly, tactfully avoid it, because if you hear us talking about it on the podcast, it is stuff that we absolutely, positively trust, absolutely, positively use. And there's other stuff that we don't use, and you don't hear them on the podcast. So that our listeners need to understand when we say, hey, the bait's real, or hey, this or that, it's because we trust it and we've tried it, and you guys even more so, obviously more so than me, have put it through the paces. But Dean, you've got a great business, you got a bunch of clients, but there are certain people that just keep you on the water, man.
And you guys covered, of course, all of the sponsors and such as that are amazing friends, family. When you work with them long enough, they do kind of become family to you. It's an amazing relationship and bond that you build with those people. I would like to thank the fans and the people that have become great friends along the way. The people are amazing. The people that listen to the podcast, that participate, and the list is way too long to even start mentioning them. They've been amazing over the years. So many that I've fished with, fun. I can't say enough about the good times that we have out there on the water. And yeah, the sponsors, the fans, the people. John Lopez, the host, who works religiously to make this thing happen, cannot go unnoticed in this situation. None of this would happen without your OCD habitual habit.
Caleb talked about it yesterday when he's like, "This is the only time I'm going to really compliment you." But man, you're ridiculous with this stuff. Yeah, I love it.
It is. John, constantly amazed at your ability to relentlessly pursue the success of this show, of making this a successful show. So, but yeah, it's all. None of it would be possible without all of it. All of the sponsors, all the companies that you guys mentioned, amazing partners with the show, help us. We couldn't do what we do without the support of those guys. And
go ahead.
The people and the fans, yes, all of those, and I thank you guys for bringing me in whenever you did. I started out as a part-time guest to the show, and what it's grown into is an amazing team effort from everybody to make it to what it is today.
And we are going to get to what would Scott do, what would Caleb do, what would Dean do. I am going to be fishing right after Christmas, so that'll be next week. Making tamales this week. I'll be delivering some to you guys. But before we get there, you got some news on the shootout. Speaking of things that we trust.
Oh yeah, that's going to be another, and that is actually a product of the podcast. Bill Bork, who I met as a relationship through the podcast, came to me with, "Have you ever seen this thing? Do you know about this thing? Where can I get one?" It grew into, "Hey, I built one." And it was like, "This is amazing. Hey, we can sell these things. Every boat needs one." So we have We've gone through all the processes of a nice little startup company built in America, 100% product that is going to be available. A totally new, innovative approach to the drift sock. What you know about drift socks is fixing to be. It's been reinvented, but it's fixed. So we're in the production phase. They are being done. The e-commerce site is built. It's finished. LLC established. All of that has been put in order, and we're expecting our first delivery middle of January, and they will be available to purchase. Yeah. Drift socks that will fit in your pocket, work better than the big bulky canvas style that you've had for years, that you've always used. Drags better, stows better. It just totally kind of reinvented that situation. And if you drift a lot, if you try to slow the boat down, if you want to control it, this thing is amazing. So yeah, and that was a product of the podcast. It's how I met Bill. It's how we started the conversation. And it's crazy how conversation of why don't these things exist has turned into what it is. Bill's got the John Lopez disease too. He's got the OCD, go getter, can't quit kind of thing. So it was him, and he's in charge of all of the production and such as that, and I'm going to do the marketing and sales.
All right.
We know if it was up to you, it'd still be on the garage floor.
God dang right.
That's right. It would be. I just love fishing, man. I just love fishing, like big time. All right. So what would Scott do? What would Dean do? Scott, it's the winds aren't crazy, but you may need to break out those waders just to be standing on your boat. It's gonna be a little chilly, especially Wednesday. A lot of people taking days off too, with the holiday coming up. So a lot of people may be out thinking about fishing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It will warm up, but a little chilly at first.
Yeah, I checked it out when Dean was talking earlier about the water levels. Our water levels went up a little bit. The water temperature went way up. It was 71 today around here. We're going to get a little front Wednesday night. It's going to blow pretty hard north, maybe a little northwest, might push some water out. By Thursday afternoon, sunshine, about 2 miles an hour. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, northeast and east, full sunshine, lows in the 50s, highs in the 60s. Should be absolutely gorgeous out there. I would think the water temperature is going to drop just a little bit with this front. Mm-hmm. And then in the afternoons with all that sunshine on it, those fish are going to creep up on the flats and be feeding like crazy if I had to guess.
Oh, baby. Dean, you have anything to add to that?
It looks amazing, man. Once this little weak front passes through us, we have less than 10 mile an hour wind for the next 5 or 6 days. And it is the season. I mean, the water temperature is good. When you get the 1st of December was kind of tough, man. We had the big fronts that came through, the wind that wouldn't quit. It made things very challenging, but it looks like we're going to get the payoff at the end of December. It's looking good. And my forecast for Wednesday, it blows overnight, and then Thursday morning, it's kind of it's the biggest wind on Thursday. It's 12 and going down all day.
Hell yeah! All right, anything to add, Scott?
Angler U tonight. If you're not a member, you might want to sign up for this one. They're going to have James Plog and Mickey Eastman on tonight at 7:00.
Oh, Lord.
The two of them together. Those two have been friends for 50 years, and Plog is hilarious. I mean, the dude makes me laugh all the damn time. And put him with Mickey, ain't no telling what's going to be said. They're going to have the beep button on standby continuously. Those two out there.
Yeah.
Should be a good time. I mean, I'm going to tune in for damn sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, boys. That was awesome. Kind of sorry about some of the things I said today, but it's too late now. And you guys, I love you guys. Next week's episode is a special sort of highlighting the things that are sort of threaded through the entire Bite Me podcast community. And then you really don't want to miss either the December 31st show, and when we talk about where and who these guys have become. You guys have a absolutely fantastic day, week, holiday, into the holidays. And as always, catch them up. We'll talk to you next time.
Better to be pissed off than pissed on.